Hello, I'm your new professor. My name is Tak, and last name is Auyung. It spells Ayuyeung. So the first thing I want to do is kind of let you guys know what the class is about, and I'm gonna present a choice so that you guys can consider which option or which way you want to go. All right, so let me first start with the curriculum of this class. So the curriculum of a class basically determines what should be taught in the class, and it usually comes with a suggestion of how it should be taught. So see, this is CISP410. It used to be called middleware web scripting, and that term middleware is kind of ambiguous and it's not really used anymore. The new name is Database Driven Web Applications. So there are a few keywords here. One is database. When we use the word database, it means it is connecting in the backend, so to speak, to a database server in order to get the data that is going to be used for rendering whatever HTML document is supposed to be displayed on a browser. And obviously, web implies that we are generating HTML documents for being displayed in a browser. And then applications is also an interesting word because in this case, application is actually application development. So we are not learning how to use an application, we are actually developing an application. And the development of an application is a programming kind of task. So that is important. We'll get to that. So I'm going to scroll forward and show you what is the prerequisite, and I think all of you know the prerequisite already because you have already met this requirement. It is CISW410, so no big deal here. Advisory, on the other hand, is something that is a little bit usually not considered. Okay, that's unfortunate because an advisory course means this course will very significantly help you succeed in a class, even though it is not a prerequisite. Um, some people may ask, then why don't we put the advisory courses into prerequisites? There are reasons, because one, we do not want to force people with some prior experience, to have to retake a class of something that they know already. So that's one reason. Another reason is depending on the composition of the class, this allows the professor to adjust the content a little bit in order to cater for the class. So, but it is worthwhile to mention that CISP 300, which is algorithm design slash problem solving, and CISW 310, which is Advanced Web Publishing, which also includes client side scripting. Both of these are listed as advisories, which means people who have taken one or both of these classes will have hmm, I would say, will have um, a better chance of succeeding in this class. That's I mean, that's not really a nice way to put it, but it is the truth. All right, so in terms of hours, okay, this is also something that is usually misinterpreted. So this class has 54 hours, over the entire semester, and 54 hours of lecture, 54 hours of lab, 108 hours of out of class work. Okay, so that is the important part. Okay, this is the part where you have to spend some time outside of lectures. Now, obviously, this is an online class and it is even asynchronous, which means you don't really have there's no differentiation between lecture and the rest of the work most of the time. Okay, not the way I'm going to teach this. I'll get to that also. Um, but the total amount of hours that people are supposed to spend in this particular class is 216 hours over the entire 16-week semester. So if you do the division, if you do the division, 216 divided by 16, I think that's like 13, okay, or around 13. Maybe a little more if I just try to do my mental math here quickly here. So 216 divided by 16, we have a 1, and then we have what, 56 left, and with 56 left, there's a 3. So yes, 13 hours per week. Um, yeah, that's not really a small number of hours, but nonetheless, that is the amount of time that is needed in order to succeed in a class like this. So the description part is kind of the interesting thing. This course emphasizes the creation of interactive website using middleware scripting environments such as PHP or Active Server Pages (ASP). So it is a suggestion. It basically it uses the phrase such as here, which means we are not limited to PHP or ASP as long as we cover these topics. Core features of the middleware scripting language, whatever one we choose to use, embedding server commands in HTML pages, and that basically would be things where you can call server environment commands, like as in command line interface, inside the script in order to get the result so they can display that in an HTML document. Control structures, I believe you guys went through a good portion of this already. So those are the conditional statements, loops, and so on. Functions, I don't think you have gone through functions. And then we got arrays, form validation, cookies, environmental variables. This is a really interesting one because some are already embedded into the language and is not quote unquote known as environmental variables, but nonetheless, it is one of the topics. And then we got email applications. We may or may not be able to get to this one because the way email servers are configured these days is they're pretty strict about what they will accept as an email to be sent through a web page. And then finally, we have database driven web application, which is actually the most important part. So now we have learning objectives, and this is really important because no matter what I teach or how I teach it, I really need to meet this particular requirement. Compare server-side and client-side scripting language for the web. I believe that topic has been covered already at this point. Apply the core structures, statements, and syntax of the middleware scripting language. You guys got some of that done. Write functions using the middleware web scripting language. I don't think that is done yet, so this is something that we're going to do. Process form data using the middleware scripting language. Definitely not done yet. Develop web page navigation using the middleware scripting language. Not done yet. Produce a web server based database and apply the basic query structure and table joins. Not done yet. Develop web pages that use session storage or session cookies. Definitely not done yet. Apply web page design concepts using the middleware scripting language. Maybe a little bit. I think for the most part is not done yet. I'm not going to go through the rest because it's really kind of lengthy and obviously it's too much detail to get into. So the key at this point is we have a choice. Okay, you guys have a choice. Okay, I'm offering you a choice because we have two scripting languages. One is PHP, which is the one being taught right now. So if I just look up, PHP on then we get to the main website of what PHP is, and you can definitely read about it. Another language, so this is, if we stay on course, we're going to continue with PHP. I know PHP well enough to definitely, teach, in PHP. However, there's an alternative. So the alternative is to use Node JS combined with Express and a few other modules that we're going to include. So this is the alternative. It uses Node.js, and the attractive part of Express in conjunction with Node.js is it uses JavaScript. JavaScript is another scripting language, compared to PHP. The two, they share a good portion of the syntax. So a lot of stuff that you learned about PHP can translate to Node.js. If anything, the syntax of Node.js is actually slightly easier because you don't need a prefix um, in front of a variable to designate, okay, this is a variable, this is a variable, and so on. So it does make it a little bit easier. It also includes some really kind of neat, nifty features, to kind of help debug programs, which is going to be a really good, important, a good portion of what you're going to spend time on is to how to debug a programs. And Node.js programs, I think, are easier to debug compared to um, PHP programs. Sorry, my mind just froze for a second there. All right, so this is our choice. Okay, between PHP and using Express in conjunction with Node.js. I know the biggest question is, oh, do we? Does this mean we have to restart everything from the beginning? The answer is no. Okay, as I said, the syntax between PHP and Node.js are very similar. They're both based on C, C++, so we are not going to lose a lot of the content. Most of the content that you learned already is directly applicable when it comes to Node.js. So that's the nifty part. The downside is PHP is designed so that you can start with a static HTML document and just gradually, change portions of it to be generated by, program code. Node.js, on the other hand, and combined with Express, requires you to generate the entire document using code. So it's not going to be as quote unquote easy, at least from the beginning. So the trade-off is you're looking at a PHP, which is I wouldn't call it a dying programming language, but it certainly is not gaining, any more market share these days. Versus Express, combined with Node.js, which is increasing in terms of the market share. I mean, I believe, you can look it up, right? So we can look up this stuff too. So we can look up PHP Express, Node.js market share. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're gonna look up maybe the first link first. Okay, see if it has any. So there we go. So we can see that both have a falling trend. One is continuing to fall, and the other one has basically uh, reached a point where it seems to be steady. And I'll kind of explain why we seem to see a downward trend here. Um, Both are free. One is proprietary. PHP, even though it is free to use, is actually a proprietary programming language, um, and it has a lot of issues because of that. I'll tell you, straight up, okay, what the problem is with PHP. It is not backward compatible. Every time they make a new version of PHP, they will get rid of some of the features or change some of the features in the previous version, and then people have to scramble to change their code, to accommodate for the new version. As far as I know, Node.js does not have a problem like that. It also has other comparisons. PHP is leading in top 10K sites. That has to do with PHP has been around for longer compared to Node.js. Node.js is a relatively new introduction. However, it is gaining momentum. There are two reasons why Node.js gains momentum compared to PHP. One has to do with PHP being a closed, quote unquote, proprietary, closed ended language. It doesn't really lend itself to have your third party libraries to perform various tasks. When it comes to Node.js, it is not specifically designed for web page generation, which PHP was. So once you learned Node.js, you can use it for web page generation, but you can also use it for all kinds of stuff, that does not require web generation. So that is the other thing that is nice about Node.js. But I'll give you one super big reason why Node.js is superior. JavaScript is JavaScript. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you're doing backend, server side, stuff, which is Node.js, or client side stuff, which is inside the browser. It is still the same programming language. So that means once you learned Node.js, you can now write code for the backend to generate HTML documents, but you can use the same language, just using different libraries, different classes and whatnot, to generate client-side stuff, to write client-side code. So it is kind of two for one. I mean, once you learn it, you can use it for many purposes instead of just being able to do back-end coding. Let me just scroll through some more. Um, Categories has a better usage coverage. That once again, it is because it's an older language, and Python for the most part is also popular because it's also an older programming language. Node.js is relatively new, but um, it's increasing in terms of uh, how it is used. So there's that, and I'm gonna look up another page. There we go. So here's another one, and you know, obviously I haven't really read through all of these pages before. Um, this one is much more in depth, so it's harder to just look at it and summarize, but it does have some of the metrics that is also shown on the other one. So PHP market share definitely right now it's pretty big. And PHP and Node.js seems to be losing in every single category. So, but this is about the popularity, which has nothing to do with whether the language is capable, and also how it is going to be utilized in the near future. Um, so right here we have detailed comparison, and you can see how Node, which is green, um, compares to PHP, which is blue. So in terms of frameworks, PHP wins out a little bit, but for almost every single other category, Node.js is winning in terms of coding, performance, speed, request handling, ecosystem. Just well, I mean they put it just a smidge over. I would probably put it a little bit more than that. Use cases, which really kind of correlates to popularity, and then there's architecture, but I would also disagree with this particular assessment. Um, Coding, Node.js wins out, and so on. All right, so you are more than welcome to look up more data related to the comparison between these two languages. Um, no matter where you look, okay, I know a few things are known to be sure, okay, you can count on it. The first one is PHP has more popularity, but as I said, because it has been around for a much longer amount of time. Um, in terms of where things are going, I think Node.js is definitely going to beat PHP. Okay, in terms of how it handles requests, and a whole bunch of other things. Okay, I'm not going to get into the detail because that's kind of technical. But personally, I think Node.js is a better language. But in the context of this class, it may not make that much of a difference. It kind of depends on whether people are planning to become actual developers or whether they are planning to not really do much coding. So there's that. I really advise you guys to do some research, find out how you want to proceed to choose between PHP and Node.js. I can teach this class in either. I cannot do it in both. Okay, there's not enough time to do it in both. I can do it in either. Um, I would say Express combined with Node.js has a steeper initial learning curve, but once you learn it, I think it is more applicable, especially if you are going to author new websites. PHP, on the other hand, has a shallower learning curve. Um, I think it tops out in terms of what it can do pretty soon, much sooner than Node.js. The main advantage of choosing PHP is if you work for someone else, okay, then you are probably going to see PHP code instead of Express Node.js code, just because PHP has been around for a longer time. So there's that. I will, once I send this video, you guys can kind of think about this and decide what you want to do. I will send you a questionnaire so that you can kind of let me know how you want to proceed. Or you can also communicate with me, using Discord or email. If you want to know more or if you want to ask me questions related to these two programming languages. All right, so once we choose, okay, once we have chosen whatever programming language, between PHP and Node.js, then we are going to kind of get into the content. Okay, I have a pretty general good idea of what the end product needs to be. It's going to be database connected, all the things that we saw earlier. Let me get back to that page so we can see it. In other words, the way I do things is I look at the end result. Okay, this is defining the end result, and then I will start with that and then go backwards. Okay, and find out, okay, to do this we need to first learn about this, and then we need to first learn about this, and then we first need to learn about this, and so on. There are a few things that are not in the learning objectives that are also very important, which is debugging and how to use the command line interface, which is not introduced in this class at this point. So that's probably the first thing I'm going to introduce is how do you sign on to a server and how do you work out the debugging process on that side. Um, all right, so at this point, I am passing the ball onto your court to decide whether we want to stay with PHP or whether we want to change to Node.js. And this is a democratic vote, okay? So I'm just going to count the number of people, voting for each one, and the majority, quote unquote, is going to win in this case. All right, so I think that's long enough as a first video sent to the class. But I do want to make sure that you guys associate a face. Oh, okay, I see. My face is actually blocking a portion of this web page here. So I just want to kind of let you guys know that you are not abandoned. We are definitely going to continue with this class. Um, I have a really more than full load already this semester, but I will do my best. Okay, I will do my best to teach this class and make sure that you guys end up learning all the things that you're supposed to learn. All right, so this is my first video of introduction. You can expect more videos from me because I prefer to teach a class kind of quote unquote interactively. I know this is not interactive because I'm talking to a computer, but I prefer to use a multimedia approach, where I just kind of work things out and talk about things using a video format. Um, I will type as much as I can, okay, in terms of the course content, because I think it is important for most people to have a written version of, the actual content. So I can work on that too. But I cannot do that until we have decided which language that we want to use. So that's the first task of this class is to decide whether we want to stay with PHP or move on to Node.js and Express. So thank you for your attention. I am going to set up the course. It's going to be pretty empty right now because we haven't really quite decided which language to use. Um, but I will go ahead and populate it as the semester goes on. All right. So have a nice weekend, and I will probably give you an update once I have collected the opinions. Thank you.